Cruel laughter cut through the desert air, sharp as shattered glass. Finnigan Doyle's outlaws had old Shima cornered. Her terrified sheep huddling as a rifle barrel glinted with deadly intent. They saw a frail Navajo woman, alone, an easy mark. They saw her prized herd, ripe for the taking. What they couldn't see, what their bitter hearts couldn't fathom, was the storm their wickedness was about to unleash. Miles away, a warrior, her grandson Kai, a name whispered with awe by his people and dread by his enemies, was already riding. He had traded his weapons for peace, but some ties refuse to be broken, and some protectors can never truly stand down. The outlaws thought their victory was certain. They had no idea the scales of justice were about to be violently rebalanced. Old Shima's life was a quiet hymn sung to the rhythms of the Arizona desert. Her small hogan, crafted from the very earth it stood upon, was nestled near Palo Verde Wash, a settlement that often seemed to exist in a different world. Her heart beat in time with her small herd of sheep and goats, their soft wool a treasure, their gentle presence, a comfort in her solitude. They were her livelihood, yes, but more than that, they were a living link to her ancestors, to the spirit of the Dene. Each dawn, she faced the rising sun. Her prayers carried on the arid breeze. Her resilience a quiet match for the harsh beauty surrounding her. Though she walked with the quiet dignity of her years, a subtle tremor of unease had begun to disturb the land. Finnigan Doyle's gang, a blight on the territory, were growing bolder, their depredations creeping closer. Shima felt the shift, an old ache in her bones that mirrored the growing fear in the scattered homesteads. Unbeknownst to her, empathy had stirred in the heart of Abram, the Palo Verde Wash storekeeper. His pinned letter, a plea for help addressed to Shima's only kin, was already traversing the rugged miles towards the Dineta. It sought Kai, a man who had sought to quiet the warrior echoes in his soul, now living as a horse trader. But some calls, especially those carried on the winds of desperation for family, demand an answer. The inevitable arrived with the thunder of hooves and the stench of arrogance. Finnigan Doyle, flanked by his sneering cronies, Cletus and Boone, reined their horses to a stop before Shima's dwelling, casting long, predatory shadows. Doyle, a man whose soul was as barren as the salt flats, let his gaze linger on the sheep, a greedy spark igniting in his cold eyes. "Water, old woman," he commanded, his voice like stones grinding together. "And food. My men are thirsty." Shima emerged, her small figure an island of defiance in a sea of malice. Her heart beat a frantic rhythm against her ribs, but her eyes were steady. "The Ola holds water," she replied, her tone even, gesturing to the clay pot. "My food is for myself. My herd is not yours to command." Doyle's laugh was a dry, rasping sound. "Spirit, eh?" he mocked, dismounting. He strode towards her, his spurs kicking up dust, invading her space until she could smell the stale sweat and whiskey on him. "This is a dangerous place for a lone woman with such tempting property. Sheep have a habit of vanishing out here." His eyes, hard and merciless, flicked to the herd and back to her, the unspoken threat hanging palpably in the air. Shima did not yield. "The spirits of this land see all," she stated, her voice gaining a quiet resonance that seemed to momentarily still the air. "Spirits don't stop bleed, grandmother," Doyle retorted, his smirk returning. After his men had drunk their fill, their movements full of contempt, he swung back into his saddle. "We'll be back," he promised, a vow of future plunder. They rode away slowly, leaving Shima enveloped in a cloud of dust and a chilling premonition. The sanctuary of her world had been violated. The ensuing days were a torment of watchful anxiety. Shima found a gatepost deliberately kicked in, her prized ram inexplicably spooked. Doyle's men were circling, their presence a constant, unseen pressure. Then, one evening, as the sky bled into the bruised colors of twilight, she found 3 ewes missing, driven miles off toward Scorpion Ridge. A clear, cruel taunt. Her heart knew what was coming. She journeyed to Palo Verde Wash, a last resort. Marshal Elias Thorne, a man worn down by the futility of his charge, listened with a grave expression. "Finnigan Doyle," he sighed, the name itself a burden. "His shadow stretches far, Shima. I'm one man against a dozen wolves. My counsel? Seek safety in numbers. Move closer to town." The thought was an arrow to Shima's spirit. Abandon her home, the land of her ancestors? "This place is part of me," she told him, her voice low but unwavering. I will not be scared away." Thorn could only offer a helpless shake of his head. Shima returned to her land, a core of iron resolve forming within her. If the world of men offered no aid, she would turn to the ancient strengths of her people. Miles away, Kai read Abram's letter by a flickering campfire. The words painting his grandmother's vulnerability, the name Doyle, the encroaching danger, each syllable was a coal, reigniting embers he thought long dead. The peaceful life he'd cultivated as a horse trader felt distant, a dream interrupted. His hands, calloused from honest labor, still remembered the feel of a bow, the balance of a knife. A cold, familiar alertness sharpened his senses. The warrior, Hestine, the one they called Naabaahii Begay, stirred from his slumber. By sunrise, he was riding west, his face a mask of grim purpose, every subtle sign on the trail, every shift in the wind, speaking to him in a language he had never truly forgotten. The final confrontation erupted under a sky, blazing with the pitiless afternoon sun. Doyle returned, not with 2 men, but with his full contingent, their faces set in expressions of brutal intent. They moved with practiced cruelty, cutting off Shima's herd, their shouts and jeers echoing as the animals cried out in terror. Shima ran towards them, her voice a desperate plea. "Leave them, they are my life." Doyle, from his saddle, looked down at her with a victor's contempt. "You were warned, old woman," he snarled. "This is Doyle's country now." He gestured sharply. "Take them all!" As his men began to drive the frantic sheep, one small lamb stumbled. Shima tried to reach it, but Doyle struck her, a vicious backhand that sent her sprawling into the dust. Pain lanced through her body. "Stay down," he commanded. Through a haze of hurt and rising fury, Shima pushed herself up, her hands outstretched, her spirit unyielding even as her world was stolen before her eyes. The outlaws rode off, their laughter a bitter epitaph to her loss. Devastated but not defeated, Shima, after they had gone, rose slowly. Bruised, aching, she turned her gaze to the sacred peak of Tse-Bida. With each step towards it, she prayed, not for vengeance, but for strength, for a miracle. Meanwhile, Doyle and his gang pushed the stolen flock deeper into the labyrinthine canyons. Their mood was crassly triumphant. This was too easy. Suddenly, a lone rider appeared on a high ridge ahead, a stark silhouette against the fiery sunset. Doyle's amusement curdled. "Who in blazes is that?" "Cletus! Boone! Go run him off! No loose ends!" Cletus and Boone, eager for a bit of sport, rode forward, pistols drawn, anticipating the fear of a lone wanderer. The figure remained motionless, an unnerving stillness about him. As they neared, they saw he was Navajo, his expression unreadable, his eyes like chips of obsidian. "This path ain't for you, friend," Cletus called, a sneer in his voice. "Best ride on." The Navajo, Kai, said nothing. His gaze was direct, unnerving. "You deaf?" Boone growled, cocking his weapon. In the space of a heartbeat, Kai moved. He wasn't just fast, he was an extension of the wind itself. A stone, launched from his hand with impossible accuracy, struck Cletus's pistol, sending it flying. Cletus howled, clutching his numb fingers. Before Boone could even process the attack, Kai's horse surged. It wasn't a charge, but a perfectly timed maneuver. Kai, leaning low, used his mount to unbalance Boone's, then vaulted to the ground with fluid grace. Boone, struggling for control, found Kai upon him. A precise strike to the wrist, another to the point of the shoulder, and Boone was on the ground, disarmed and disabled, his yelp cut short. Cletus, fumbling for a knife, was met with a leg sweep that sent him crashing down beside his partner. It was over. 2 of Doyle's toughest men, neutralized without a single shot, their arrogance replaced by whimpers of pain. Finnigan Doyle, watching this silent, deadly ballet from afar, felt a spear of ice pierce his chest. This was no ordinary trail hand. The economy of motion, the chilling precision. It reminded him of stories, dark tales whispered about a warrior known as Naabaahii Begay, the warrior's son. Doyle had always scoffed. Now, seeing his men so effortlessly dispatched, the legend took on a terrifying reality. The predator had become the prey. Kai advanced slowly, his horse following like a shadow. The remaining outlaws shifted, their bravado gone, replaced by a primal fear. They had witnessed something beyond their comprehension. Doyle, Kai's voice, though quiet, resonated with an ancient power. "My grandmother's herd. You will bring them back." Doyle fought to muster his courage, his reputation on the line. "One man?" he blustered, his hand hovering near his gun. "You against all of us?" "Your numbers mean nothing," Kai stated, his gaze unwavering. "Return what you stole." Fueled by a desperate rage, Doyle drew. He was fast, but Kai was faster. Not with a gun, but with purpose. He moved like a striking hawk. Before Doyle's pistol cleared leather, Kai was on him. A blur of motion. Doyle's gun hand was trapped, a sharp pain shooting up his arm as the weapon was wrenched from his grip. A stunning blow, and Doyle found himself hauled from his saddle, landing hard. His remaining men were statues, their weapons forgotten. They knew they were outmatched by something they didn't understand. Kai efficiently bound Doyle with his own rope, his movements practiced and sure. He then retrieved Doyle's gun. "The sheep," he commanded the wide-eyed gang members. "Take them to Shima's land, now." There was no hesitation. They scrambled to obey, their fear a palpable thing. Kai then collected the subdued Cletus and Boone, securing them to their horses. He found Shima on her return from the sacred peak, her spirit weary but her prayers ascending. When she saw Kai, leading her herd, with the vanquished outlaws in tow, her breath caught. He dismounted and simply stood before her. Her trembling hand reached for his arm. "Kai," she whispered, tears of relief carving paths through the dust on her face. "My grandson," the warrior had answered. The sight of Kai riding into Palo Verde Wash the next morning, with Shima's herd and the notorious Doyle and his henchmen trussed up, sent shockwaves through the settlement. Marshal Thorne could only stare, dumbfounded, as the legendary outlaws were delivered to his jail. How? Was all he could manage. Kai's answer was simple. "They wronged my family." Respect and a touch of awe bloomed on the faces of the townsfolk. Shima, once a solitary figure, was now seen through the lens of her grandson's incredible feat. Peace returned to her land, a deeper, more secure peace, watched over by the quiet strength of Kai, who stayed for many weeks. He helped her rebuild, his presence, a silent promise of protection. Though Kai eventually returned to his chosen path, he left behind more than a restored herd. He left a living legend in Palo Verde Wash. The story of Naabaahii Begay, the warrior who came like a desert storm to defend his grandmother, became a tale for the ages, a testament to the enduring power of kinship and the unyielding courage that can rise from the quietest heart on the dusty trail.